Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I am great.
All freshened up from vacation?
I am, yeah. It worked.
Good.
It's nice when a vacation actually refreshes you as opposed to like drains you.
Right, because the last time you went to Vegas, you went to a conference and you overstimulated your senses, right?
Yep. Yeah. This was the opposite. So I was at a lake house and we had like a fire pit and a rope swing and a hammock and played a ton of board games, and it was just like relaxation time.
Mm-hmm.
I realized I had been there for like, I think it was 3 days, and I hadn't put my shoes back on since I'd gotten there.
That's a good sign that you're relaxing.
Yeah, it was pretty perfect.
Yeah.
I was like, my shoes are where I left them when we got to the house.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool. I did a little mini retreat just camping one night with a group of friends up north in northern Minnesota. Friend had a cabin on the Mississippi, and it was similar where like cell service was sketchy up there, so I really couldn't check things. And I think he had Wi-Fi in his cabin, but I deliberately didn't ask for the password because I like just didn't want to go there. And yeah, it was fun, like swinging in hammocks and floating down the river, and it kind of does reset you a bit.
It does. It's surprising how just being outside seems to have that impact on me.
Mm-hmm. Fresh
just
air,
like more outside time. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm glad it was a good vacation.
Yeah. So I tweeted something yesterday.
Yeah, you went viral yesterday. Jeez.
I went a little viral yesterday. So I tweeted a thing. I said, someone sent me an email actually after he heard us on Startups for the Rest of Us and asked me some questions, and I wrote up a response, and I was like, hey, some of this is pretty good. Maybe I should turn it into a blog post. And I was like, I'm not going to do that, but maybe I'll just take this part and turn it into a tweet. And so the tweet said, you can passively consume hundreds of articles and podcasts and learn far less than shipping one side project a year. And yeah, it went a little crazy. It's at like 800 retweets right now, which is cool. But I am re-experiencing a thing that I have experienced in the past, which is if you say anything on Twitter and it becomes somewhat popular, people will misinterpret it. Not to like whine about having a tweet do well, but I try to word my writing carefully. Basically, a lot of people are interpreting this as me saying, don't consume articles and podcasts. Like never consume articles and podcasts, only ship side projects. Oh, and by the way, side projects for sure means open source software that you work on by yourself.
Community can be funny like that, can't they?
Yeah, it's interesting to see people's biases projected onto a tweet. And part of that is not really their fault, right? Like that's like Twitter encourages this sort of like quick response and like skimming everything. And I sort of don't blame people for it, but I find myself in this position of kind of responding to people and being like, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I don't know what the source of these people's angst is, like the people who are choosing to have a negative reaction to it, but I think that's usually a good sign that you have said that like you're onto something good when there's an equal amount of haters as there are people in agreement with you.
I think so too. I think so too. If there's no controversy, you probably haven't said something important.
Right. Yeah.
Like I think you want a little bit of an emotional response sometimes.
Yep. So it could be born out of people like feeling like they don't have time to work on side projects. So now they're lashing out and saying like, this is a ridiculous statement, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. I also just think some people are wrong. Like some people are just responding to me and saying like some people just learn much more by reading. And it's like, well, I think you can feel like you're learning a lot more by reading. But I just had this experience in so many creative endeavors where you cannot read enough to come close to what you learn by doing a thing. In most activities, I think, be it physical activities, be it coding, like intellectual endeavors, like I think it's just tough. And like, yes, you can prime your brain and like put some concepts in it, but you need that first-hand experience.
Yeah, by making that statement, you're not saying that you cannot learn anything through reading or reading articles, which is obviously not what you said, but I found this to be true where when you're making statements like this, and whether we're talking on a podcast, writing a blog post, or writing a tweet, like you can't, obviously you're going to state things in a way that sounds absolute, but it's like poor writing style to just like always put like a sometimes or in usual cases, you know, you just kind of have to make statements, and it should be clear, people knowing who you are, that you're not saying like, this is 100% true 100% of the time. It's like, it's kind of just a rule of thumb, right?
Right.
So
Yep. Like it starts with like, you can.
Yeah.
Like it's not like all people who X experience Y.
Yep.
But yeah.
Nice. Well,
that's
congrats
cool.
on the virality. It's
Oh, thanks.
That was fun. I was like, whoa, that's a lot of activity. Kudos.
Yeah.
Do you know what the catalyst was? Was it just like, did someone really popular retweet it or something? Or was it just...
I don't know. Well, I don't. Yeah. DHH retweeted it.
Oh, okay. Well,
And he has like 250,000 followers or something. I don't know how it came across his feed, but I think that was when I saw that happen is when I noticed the numbers start to go crazy. Yeah. And then he retweeted me again this morning when I was about me bitching about Medium. So
you're getting all the DHH love today.
Yeah. So yeah, that's cool. And business stuff. I'm working on hiring a designer. I'm talking to somebody right now. I need some design elements for the course. Like, I'm talking to Tom, the phenomenon, the Irish car bomb, Obarski, about making some bumpers for the videos. So like an intro and an outro. And so I want I basically like need a course logo at the very least. And probably it's looking like a sales page. I'm not sure how much custom markup and such I'll need for a sales page, because I'm probably going to use a platform that gives you a sales thing, like a WYSIWYG type deal. But I'm going to need some stuff. So I'm in chat. I'm emailing some people. And yeah, that's coming along pretty well. I think I'm honing in on what I want to be in this, like the premium tier of the course, like the second tier. I really don't, I've said before, but I do not want to launch with a single tier. I just think I would just be leaving huge money on the table. So what I'm thinking right now, and I think I'm going to email my list, or at least part of it. I've learned that if you email hundreds of people, you will regret it. Mm-hmm. Like people just process emails slowly. And so like sometimes I'll ask a question of a list and it's like 2 months later, someone's like, I think you should do X. It's like, well, thanks. But so what I'm thinking right now is, so like the base tier will be just the videos. And then the next tier up will be the videos plus the source code of all the examples. So I have all that stuff, and I made a branch every time I recorded a video, so you can like flip between master and my finished branch and see the diff, which I think will actually be handy. And you can also like play back the commits as I build up the example, so you can kind of see how I work on simple Rails apps. And then also I have these two side projects, Briefs and Trail Mix, that I built over the years, which are actual revenue generating production Rails apps. And those code bases are open source already. People can already go see them. But I was thinking of recording a tour of each of them. So like, here are some interesting points and decisions we made as we built these things. And like, maybe even like, if I were going to come and refactor this class here, I might do this kind of thing with some like, and then it's kind of like marrying the refactoring ideas that were generated on example apps, but saying like, in the real world, here's what I might change about this thing. And then to continue that theme, I actually found a decent number of open source Rails apps that are not amazing code quality wise. I think I'm going to do like another like live walkthrough of just sort of like a tour, basically like spend a couple hours making some notes on it and then just walk through it.
Yeah. Nice. So, that's cool. I like that. I think it's a good idea. Yeah.
Cool. So you vote yes on my survey.
Yeah.
Okay.
I vote yes.
Yeah. I've that touring the app and like pointing things out I've done before as a consulting engagement back when I was at Thoughtbot. Like I had a company send me their Rails app and I just like went through and made notes and then gave like an hour talk on it. And I think it was really useful. Like you can actually convey a surprising amount, and it's particularly relevant because that's their app. And like, oh yeah, I know the order creator is a mess, but Ben is pointing out some specific things about why it's a mess and how it could be better. And so I think it'll be useful.
I bet if you ever wanted to pick up some consulting income, you could probably make some bank doing that.
So I'm considering a third tier that is that.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure if I'm going to do that, but we'll see. But something like sort of like a prepackaged consulting engagement for X thousands of dollars, where I actually do that for your app and maybe come to your office and pair with people, or maybe just do it remotely, or unclear, but yeah, something along those lines.
Over the years, like pre getting into Drip and all that, like when I was considering doing consulting things, like what attracted me the most attractive model to me was like the model of flat fee, limited scope, instead of like some kind of hourly engagement that can kind of spiral out of control. I don't know. I like the simplicity of like, this is what you're getting. It's basically a product, but it just includes a slice of my time, you know?
Yep. So totally. I might put that in there at a really high price, almost just to make the rest of it look cheaper. And then if someone does want it, it's like, wow, okay, I accept this very high rate.
I mean, you could put too, like, limited availability, like we have 10 slots and that's it.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, I would definitely limit it. I would be surprised if that tier flew off the shelves, but I would definitely not just offer my time up en masse like that. Yeah, I've been dragging a little bit on setting up the meetup tour, but that's one of my goals for next week is to actually get some stuff on the books. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty pleased with how things are coming along. My post-vacation week has been reasonably productive.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So aside from, let's see, you're doing design stuff on the sales page, bumpers on videos. So you're on track then to hit your launch date, you think?
What did I say my launch date was?
I believe it was was it second week of September? I can't remember actually.
That sounds about right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to hit second week of September. I think it's going to be the end of September. I think there's actually just enough stuff there, and like having to do a design project and video editing and all that. I think there's just enough that it'll take a little bit too long. So I think I'm about a month out from launch. Do you want to talk about David's thing, or do you want to do some drip stuff and then talk about David?
Yeah, I have maybe just a few drip updates, and then we can kind of dive into that. Last few weeks, I've been onboarding a new developer onto the core product team, which has been really, really nice. We've been focusing a lot of effort on kind of back-end opsy stuff. Now, like on the core product side, which is we've kind of subdivided into two teams, one to handle like servers and database and all the heavy scaling stuff, and then the team that's kind of cranking out customer facing features. It's been pretty much just me and Ian Nance, who was on this podcast a few episodes back, interviewed him. He's been on the team for a couple of years, so he knows the code base in and out, and so he's really productive on cranking out features, but it's really just been me and him primarily focused on features, and I haven't written a whole lot of code recently. So there's been a large demand for more developer time on core product side. It's been great just getting a new smart developer onboarded. He's doing really well and feels good. I've been trying to proactively pair a lot just to accelerate his learning of the code base. And as may not be surprising, it's been working pretty well. So another vote for pairing.
Yeah. Have you been experiencing that nice like new person on the project thing where you're like, oh, this shouldn't be like that?
You mean like him noticing things that?
Yeah, or you as you just teach him the ropes and say like, this thing's a little bit wonky. Like, why is this wonky, by the way?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I mean, we're starting with kind of a quasi admin area task that's a little bit lower risk than one that's facing customers, and there definitely are some parts of that code base that are a little bit old, a little bit wonky. And the cool thing is, I pointed out some of the areas that were not so good, and then as part of his task, he's done a bit of refactoring, but not in like a total bike shedding kind of way where 2,000 lines of code changed and massive refactor, but like just enough where it's like, yeah, I can still read this diff cleanly and I can see what you're doing and I like it, and it's making the code better, but it's not like spiraling way out of scope. I really like that. And he upgraded our version of RuboCop so that it's compatible with Atom plugins for automatically linting as you save files. And he found a little performance issue where we were stuffing things into an array instead of freezing it in a constant or something. And he was like, this appears to be 3 times faster. And he just came across it. I was like, this is awesome. I need more of this. Yeah.
Is this person, they're not remote, right?
No, they're local here in the office.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's I've been having a good time with that, and yeah, we might be expanding even further.
Ooh.
So
nice teaser.
Yeah.
Are you hiring, by the way? Looking for engineers still?
We basically have a standing job posting because we tend to hire slow enough where, I mean, we're pretty particular about looking for culture fit, looking for the right experience. It usually takes us on average a couple of months to find someone. And we kind of have a steady stream of people submitting resumes and going through the pipeline. So at this point, we're just probably always going to have for the foreseeable future a standing job posting.
Okay. I'm just realizing like we have an audience of Rails developers probably. So
Yeah.
what makes someone a culture fit?
Partly it's just like interpersonal skills. Like, are you easy to work with? Are you easy to talk to? There's like a fine balance we found of people who are opinionated about things that they feel strongly about, or, taken to an extreme, you may be so opinionated that it's going to be a constant clash and a constant, desire for that person to change existing patterns in the code base. And now that we're on a mature code base, like that kind of thing could be toxic to the team, So it's like a lot of small things like that. I think someone who demonstrates the ability to search for the right solution and not always just advocate for the solution that they want to happen. Because I think that's been like a core part of our DNA of our team is like, anytime there's a handful of us standing in front of a whiteboard hashing out a problem, basically egos go out the door and we all kind of throw our ideas out there. And the one that emerges as like the clear winner, it really doesn't matter whose decision it was. And none of us walk away feeling like, oh, I just had to give up on that one. So now I'm going to fight for the next time and make sure my opinion gets chosen. You know what I mean? It's not like a trading economy of like, okay, I'll give you that one, but I want the next one. It's just like, no, we will always just search for the best solution. That kind of stuff it's hard to gauge, but I feel like it's like we're getting better and better at it just over time as you interview more people.
Do you do whiteboard things?
No, not really.
Do you pair with people during the interview?
So usually we have the first interview is just discussing just a conversation. And sometimes we will actually look at code if they have code to demonstrate and kind of walk through like, okay, what's an interesting project you're working on recently? And is it something you're able to show us? Unfortunately, a lot of times people in the commercial software industry can't actually show code, which is just the nature of the beast. But, sometimes it's like, well, it's not like we're stealing anything.
Yeah, if you like copied a couple files out of an app you worked on, is that
Right.
really?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That excuse sounds a little flimsy to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually step one. And then we will generally do, if there is like a question about like specific coding chops, we'll usually pay for a test project. So, just buy a few of their hours and give them a simple project that loosely simulates something that they would really be working on. I'm not a believer in the computer science-y exercises on whiteboards or binary trees or anything like that. So
that's cool. I like coding projects as a interview tool. Like seeing how someone actually writes code, but not under pressure of an interview. I think that makes a lot of sense. I remember, like, I haven't interviewed in a long time, but Thoughtbot does pairing interviews, and I do remember freezing up a bit during the pairing. And it's just like you just get to this point where like I can't move forward, like, and then your brain's like, oh God, you're screwing up. Stop screwing up. Like, make some progress. Like, I don't know how. And it's just, I felt myself performing substantially worse than I would normally, which means it's just not a great signal. I guess you can sort of scale for that, right? If you're an interviewer and say like, okay, I'm assuming someone's 30% more competent than we see in the pairing, but
right, yeah,
it still feels pretty imperfect.
Yeah, I think the closer you can get to simulating real life, the better. And like when you're pairing with that person after they've gotten the job, they're not going to be under the pressure of an interview. So if there is interview pressure introduced, then you gotta account for that in your evaluation. And so, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
Sweet tangent, bro.
Yeah. Another thing that I've been thinking about lately, I think I mentioned this on a prior episode, is just kind of the level of signal to noise in our notifications that we're getting from all the various systems. And
this is your horse. This
yeah,
is the horse you ride.
Yeah. So one thing that we've been tossing around is like just allocating a certain amount of time for all developers every week to kind of pull issues out of this bucket that I've been labeling with noise in GitHub and just kind of hammering through these maintenance tasks. Most things kind of flow through the normal channels of like we end up finding the best person to work on the project and we assign it and it ends up in their queue in an ordered list and they always know what to pull off next. And this is kind of a separate category where I feel like anytime a noisy honey badger error starts happening and it's not actionable, I want to just file it, label it with noise, and then I would like that to get picked up at a certain point in the future, hopefully sooner rather than later, because I consider high noise levels really detrimental. So it's kind of a break from our normal flow of issue prioritization and assignment. Someone on our team threw out the idea of like just making Monday mornings be like housekeeping Mondays, and you just spend 4 hours a week, and hopefully it won't interfere. Like if it's like fresh start of the week, so you're not deep into something already, and you can spend a little time working through these, and then you can get into your deeper projects.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like your broken windows
Right.
tending.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we've gotten to the point on certain things like honey badger exceptions where there's this low level of exceptions, and it's just annoying enough where certain people have like they're having those emails skip their inbox now because it's like, well, it's just so noisy, and when that happens, you know that you have failed because undoubtedly something critical is going to come in and it's going to not be on someone's radar. So
Totally.
yeah,
Cool. I like that idea.
yeah,
I think that like regular house cleaning type thing is really, it's when I've done things like that, I found it very gratifying because usually it's a fairly quick win at the end of the day. And it's satisfying to ship a small thing and know the world is a little bit better and you have an early win in the week. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. I would not expect any of these to take more than an hour, to figure out. You maybe write one little test case and scrub that exception out, and it's going to feel good, I think. So
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other drip stuff?
No, I think that's it for me for this week.
All right. You want to talk about David Cancel?
Yeah.
Why
So
don't you cue us up?
yeah. So a couple weeks ago, David Cancel was in the Lead Pages office.
So Clay said Cancel.
Yeah, I've never heard Cancel before, and Clay said it actually cancel and cancel, and David didn't correct him either way. So
Okay. All right. Let's go with Cancel then.
I'm gonna say cancel just because that's what
Fair
I've
enough.
always said. But
It feels more natural.
yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. So, anyways, he was in the office a couple weeks ago for actually a company board meeting, and it was just recently publicly announced that he is officially on the Lead Pages board, which is cool. And I've been a fan of David's for a while. He has his Seeking Wisdom podcast, which is always full of great knowledge nuggets. And he's a super successful founder, founded four different companies and sold them. And now he's most recently working on Drift. Do you know David at all, or anyone from his team?
I don't actually.
Yeah.
I've just never bumped into him.
Yeah. So, he's a cool guy. I got to meet him in person for the first time, which was cool. And anyways, Lead Pages puts out a podcast and video show called Conversion Cast. And there was a special episode recently with David and Clay when David was in town. And it felt like it was an interesting conversation. It was about 28 minutes. And one particular part of it that they dove into was Clay was asking David what his top 10 items are for determining if you're doing well as a customer-driven product team. Similar to kind of the Joel Spolsky test, the famous Joel test, where it's like, basically, are you passing or failing on these different things? And it's kind of nice to boil it down to like pass, fail, to get just a quick gauge on how well you're doing on that front. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to do that because I think some of them are definitely provocative a little bit, like they're a little controversial. And I think David is one to kind of take a bold stand on some of these things. So I thought it'd be cool to talk through some of the more controversial ones potentially. And since there's only 10 of them, maybe we'll breeze through some of the ones where it's like, we'll go through all 10, and some of them will be just like, yep, we both agree, and other ones will be.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1 is, do your engineers talk to customers weekly?
Yeah.
And he says this is sort of the mother rule. Like nothing else works if you don't do this.
Yep. I would say that we're not necessarily passing on that front on the Drip team today. Like not all engineers are talking to customers weekly. If I rewind back to the earlier days of Drip when we were a much smaller team, we were all in support, which was the primary channel through which we talked to customers. And that was definitely invaluable for figuring out like what are customer pains, what are they asking for, keeping our finger on the pulse of what our customers need. I think that's definitely, I would agree that that's an important thing to have knowledge of customer pains flowing through all the way into the engineering team. And I think we maintain the spirit of that, although we don't necessarily have direct conversations happening with all the engineers.
When I read that, like every week, direct engineer to customer contact, I don't know. Like that sounds like a lot. Like that sounds like that's probably pretty good if you can achieve that. But at the same time, I'm not super skeptical of the idea that you can filter that feedback and contact through an intermediary and still have the point get to the engineering team.
You're
Like,
skeptical.
I think
You're skeptical.
I'm not skeptical. I'm optimistic that you
Yeah.
could have some, like the support team talking to customers directly and boiling down, here are our biggest issues currently, and have the message get through correctly. So each of these has an implicit cost, I imagine, right? Like interacting with customers is time you're not doing other things. So I'm not sure I'm like as extreme on this one as he is.
Yeah. Yep. I concur.
I imagine this is even more important early days. Like when the product is nascent and you are still trying to figure out how to build the right thing for people. I think that direct contact is the highest bandwidth solution. And so, and that information flow is super important at that phase. But later on, as you're figuring stuff out and you think you have like the product market fit has been achieved, I imagine this becomes slightly less important.
Yeah, because there's a lot of noise in customer communication channels today at Drip. You know, we have 22,000 customers. We have several thousand trial signups a month right now. So there's a lot of people coming through the door and expressing their desires, their concerns, the things that they love, the things that they don't love. And that is a massive fire hose of information. And to just put like an engineer in there and they're going to get a small sampling of that, and it's not guaranteed to be a representative sample. So they may walk away feeling like, oh my gosh, we need to build this new feature and like people want it really badly today. And I feel like support people are trained specifically to take this in and put it through the first level of filtering, which is like, well, we've heard the same thing over and over again, but this person's they're not within our target market that we're trying to sell the product to, and we can't please everybody. So we're going to filter that one out, or we're going to, we're not going to let that trickle all the way into the engineering team. So I think having those if you don't have filters in place and you have a massive fire hose of information, it can be a little dangerous, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that sampling problem is pretty important. That could be pretty insidious. Like if you don't have the context of other things you've seen and you can't establish the relative weight of issues, I agree it'd be easy to walk away and be like, we gotta do this thing right now. Number 2, do you ship daily builds to customers? Like, do you ship every day something that customers see?
Yep. And I would say for the most part, yes. Like, does it happen every single day? Do we get a feature shipped? Probably not. But in general, yes, we are pretty close to continuous deployment where we deploy to production 5 times a day and on average, and usually there's at least something customer facing in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this seems like a good goal to me.
Yep.
I think I have screwed this up in the past by not getting a good enough cadence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Want to do number 3?
Let's do number 3. So number 3 is, do you do customer usability testing 2 to 4 times a month? And these can be, he clarified that these could be like high fidelity mockups, that could be InVision flows, or just a sequence of screenshots that are from Sketch or something. So they're not necessarily like, throwing something on staging and actually walking through with real code, but at the very least, mockups from design.
Mm-hmm. And this sounds great if you have the person power to do it.
Yeah.
Because having done some of this, I have been shocked at how unclear something I thought was very clear turned out to be. Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the ways that I've seen it done internally is using, I think it's called Full Story. And it's like, kind of anonymized usage recording, so you can see what people are stumbling over in the UI, and that's one way to just kind of screen through and see, like, trying to spot glaring usability issues. And we've also done this. Our head of design will do this more so internally because we have a large enough team and we use Drip in house. So he'll often take potential new flows and bring them to the marketing team and have them give feedback, and then we'll throw stuff in staging when it's at that point, when it's coded up, and he will stand over their shoulder and watch them use it. And I do think it's generally valuable. I don't know how often it actually changes the feature in a meaningful way. It's probably, I wouldn't say it's a majority of the time, but I think there certainly is some valuable information to come from that. You should be doing this early on for sure, when you're pre-product market fit, and then afterward, I think it's a good goal, to try to do this on a regular basis.
Sure. Number 4 is, do your engineers handle daily project management work? I thought this was an interesting one I'm not quite sure I understand his point fully, but I think it's the idea that like engineers are managing their own schedules and like knowing when to pull new things off and planning out features and things like that. Is that how you took that one?
Yeah. So I'm assuming, I'm not sure, how exactly the next up things to build end up in the bucket of things to do. I don't think it was totally saying that like engineers are the ones that are coming up with what exact features to build and then just doing them totally uninitiated, But I feel like at the very least, these things need to end up somewhere in a queue where it's like, okay, here's a list of things that we could be working on. And now the engineers are free to pick out the ones that they find interesting to work on. I don't know. This is one where I feel pretty strongly that you need to have product leadership involved in what's being built next. Especially when you have small teams, you only have so many resources, and a lot of times in Drip, features we build can be large in scope. So, they may take 4 to 6 weeks to build, and so if something ends up being started and it ends up taking a majority of the product teams or the engineering team's time for the next 4 to 6 weeks, and it's not something that is high priority when you look at it from an overall product roadmap standpoint, then I think that can really mess up your cadence.
I think it's like the first thing we talked about, where like context is really important, and it's easy to not have that context. And I've seen that happen even on like small teams, like on Upcase, like with 2 people bringing a new person on the project, and sometimes they would sort of self-select their next thing and open up a pull request. And it was like, okay, like sure, this is fine, but like this is not the most important thing.
Right. And the cost comes with, like, as soon as code is proposed, like I always want to make sure that code is reviewed, that we move it along and it doesn't sit there and get stale. It does happen sometimes, but that's definitely not the way we want to operate. But if something is now like, okay, there's code ready to review, and there's a cost to reviewing it, there's a cost to QAing it, to shipping it, and to iterating on it. And if it's not something that's high priority, then you're potentially paying a pretty high cost for something that you shouldn't be tackling at that time.
And I think there's another factor here, which is that engineers like to work on interesting problems.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give them a list of things, they will tend to choose the thing that looks like the most fun to code.
Right. Which is not necessarily in alignment with what the customer needs. Like oftentimes the things that are going to help the customers the most are the most gnarly, like they're the most difficult UI challenges, or they're like something performance related where it's just not necessarily that fun to go in and like make this report function 20% faster. It's like, that's the dirty work. That's not necessarily the fun work.
I enjoyed that work, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah, the optimization stuff I find really fun. It's very satisfying.
Yeah.
It's you have like such a clear metric of success.
That's true. I do like measurability. Like if you can say, the more tangible it is, the better.
And like faster, better. Like it's like now this thing goes faster. It just feels good viscerally.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Next.
Yeah. So the next one is: do project managers or product managers and designers work together to test future initiatives with customers a ways out from engineering actually working on the features?
Mm-hmm. And he said like people should, like, ideally they would be spending 80% of their time working on those future things.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think this is something you should be doing. This is a vital part of roadmap planning, is looking out ahead beyond what's currently being worked on. And I feel like in times where I've been sufficiently distracted with the day-to-day and haven't been able to allocate headspace to thinking about what's coming next, the more anxiety I feel, and the less like satisfied I feel that we are on the right track. So I think it's an important thing to be doing when you're in a product leadership
Agreed.
position.
This is a pattern that I saw work really well at Thoughtbot, where like on a team of, let's say, 2 developers and a designer, the designer would try to always be 2 weeks ahead of development.
Yeah.
And it worked quite nicely.
Yep. And I think it's kind of the nature of the way the cadence of work. Like I feel like oftentimes the design phase of a project is most of the time shorter than the development phase of it. So I'm finding just in the normal day-to-day, we have 2 designers on our team right now, and then a handful of engineers working on core product features, and usually design's done, and then the designers are looking for something next to work on. So we always try to have background threads going of like, okay, what if we were to reimagine the whole outer chrome of the app, and how could we reorganize things to be more intuitive, and just like larger scale projects that are not necessarily going to happen right away, but things that are good to have on the radar and for future planning and to gradually work into the product. So I think it's a natural fit with the designer cadence as well.
Mm-hmm. For the next two, I don't really have much thoughts on them. Do you have thoughts on either of those? If not, I would say skip them and go to 8.
Number 6, I think, is less interesting. Number 7 is, are all engineering teams working on customer-facing product features? I feel like this one is pretty controversial because, like, we have recently subdivided into 2 teams. We have a core product team and we have the backend team. The backend team is spinning up servers. It's like doing low-level like operating system metrics tracking, all those kinds of things. And I think what he's proposing is that each team that's working on things should have someone who's that low level, and then also someone who's working on kind of application level code and designers. So like slicing vertically as opposed to horizontally in the stack. And that doesn't sound very feasible to me. Like, as we that was kind of how we operated, where we all kind of worked on all the way through the stack, all the way down to server administration. But as we've needed more rigor and, we now have 80 servers, things are much more complex to manage. We've gradually moved towards having a team of specialists who are focused on that end of the stack. And I'm not sure it's really important for someone who's working on low-level DevOps stuff to be like talking to customers daily and thinking about like some new toggle switch to add to the app. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it seems a little extreme to me as well. I believe in the value of that specialization. That makes a lot of sense to me. So number 8 is, did you replace your internal engineering metrics with customer metrics? So the idea is, do you only give credit for customer-facing metrics like churn or issues or adoption or revenue, NPS, things like that? The opposite in his mind was like releases or pull requests or whatever. Like, don't measure your dev team based on like code produced, but actually things that customers care about. I haven't like heard that explicitly framed that way, but I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we've talked before internally, like just kind of thought experiment of like what are the key performance indicators for a development team and how can we measure it? Because people who think operationally want to have those kinds of metrics for all their teams. They want to know like, all right, how are they performing and can we put a metric on it so that it's measurable and consistent and it's not totally subjective? I struggle even today finding a single metric that actually makes sense for a development team. It's certainly not hours worked in a day. It's certainly not number of commits or lines of code changed. It's not number of pull requests even, because that varies depending on the scope. So what is that? And I think ultimately, for the most part, it doesn't matter. What matters is how is the customer being impacted by the work that the product team's doing. So
yeah, I on a whim, I asked Kent Beck if he had a metric for developer productivity, and he said something like, "Not yet, but I've only been at this for 30 years or so.
Yeah,
so we'll see."
Yeah,
and I was like, "All right, well, yep. Kent Beck still doesn't know. It's probably not a useful chase." It feels like it would be really difficult. Like, I like that the focus is on the customer-facing things, although it feels like it would be real hard to be like, okay, this development team, how did you impact churn this month? Like, it feels like it would be hard to associate those things, like a noble goal, but how do you actually tie them together?
Yeah, I think trying to attribute any kind of high-level metric like that to a specific team is like not gonna ever work.
Yeah. So maybe it's more like you reward the engineering team as a whole based on like improvement of customer facing metrics without trying to attribute it to specific efforts by people, but say like, hey, like churn is our problem too, or NPS is our problem too.
Yes. Number 9 was, do you rotate engineers into support?
Mm-hmm. He says, yeah, so apparently at Drift, all their engineers start off doing weekly support. And then after they do a certain amount of that, they graduate, and then they still are rotated into support on some sort of ongoing basis.
Yeah. So this one, I feel like early on is something you should totally be doing. We all kind of were in support regularly in the early days of Drip for the first couple of years, I would say. Gradually, it becomes, like we talked about earlier, a massive fire hose, and I think that sampling problem is still a real thing where like if you're only seeing 1% of tickets come through and those people are particularly vocal about something, that's not a representative sample. So I think the danger is still there. And I also feel like you got to be careful with this because it's like support flows are definitely much different than like deep focus engineering type of flows, and context switching is a real thing. So I'm always leery of disrupting engineer prime time, I guess.
Even if you blocked it out so that there was no context shift, I still am a little skeptical of this one, because to me this devalues the skill of providing good support to some degree. I'm not that good at support, I would say, and like when I was doing support for Thoughtbot products, it was not as good as when we hired a support person. He just was better at it. And so I get that this is like a nice way to ensure you've got that. But this is one way to make sure your engineers are talking to customers weekly. And it might be a good kind of like onboarding type thing. But yeah, it's like your engineers are probably not going to be great at this job. So why drop them into it on a regular basis?
Yeah. I mean, I found for myself, I tend to think through problems from an engineering perspective. And my natural inclination is when I hear one little usability issue, I want to get on it and fix it. Like I naturally want to do that. But a lot of times there's some workaround that's maybe not perfect, but it's good enough. When I see support telling them, "Oh no, we can't do that exactly how you're describing, but here's a small workaround," the customer's like, "Great, love it," and they're satisfied. And
right.
But my perfectionist engineering side of me is saying like, "Oh, but that's a subpar thing, and the customer's probably not going to be ultimately satisfied, but I can make them even more satisfied." When really like support's like, "No, we've tested this and we've discovered that this workaround is perfectly fine, and customers don't care." And so It's like, I think you're
like, "But there's a nail there, and I have this huge hammer."
Right, exactly. One of the good things about engineers having contact with customers is they start to get a sense for what really is important and what's not. And I think they mentioned an anecdote about this. Clay brought it up where an engineer was proud of the fact that they had spent time optimizing the performance time of a color picker on the Lead Pages builder. And, if he would have been talking to customers, he probably would have realized that was not a good use of time, because like if it took a few milliseconds longer, the customer doesn't even care, right? I don't know. I still think there's ways to get this transferred without necessarily requiring everyone to be answering support tickets, whether it's like shadowing support or just having regular contact with the support team. Yeah, I think there are certainly multiple ways to get at the same ultimate goal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Number 10 is, do you celebrate customer-facing releases every week or month?
Oh yeah, launch juice.
I'm pretty into that. You want to say what the launch juice thing is?
Yeah, so we have way back, a few years back, we subscribed to one of those little snack box things, and most of them were pretty ridiculous. Like, I don't know, like these kale based snacks that had no flavor, and like. But one of the lasting things we discovered through there was this apple cider vinegar called Fire Cider. It has like habanero in it and a bunch of other really spicy things. And now it's a tradition where when we ship anything customer facing or just any big deal we need to celebrate on the drip team, we all take a shot of Fire Cider.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like it.
Yeah, that's a lasting.
That's
tradition.
a nice tradition. I feel like that's like a nice little cultural thing. Like you get to be on the inside and you know what the tradition is and how it works. I think the bigger point here is deciding what you reward is such a great way to set the direction for a team. Like you can say, our goal this quarter is to do X, Y, Z, but it's really like what people receive recognition for in front of their peers that I think gets done more often. We're wired for that, and it just works really well.
Mm-hmm. And I think, yeah, if they tend to be things that, things are rewarded, especially when the value translates all the way down to the customer, is a good way to help everyone on the team always be thinking about, like, ultimately, why are we doing this? We're doing this to serve our customers well, and they're the ones that ultimately like bring in the revenue and they pay all the bills. So,
yep,
yeah,
they pay for the Fire Cider.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So we'll link up that video in the notes. It's worth watching. It was interesting
for sure.
And yeah, I think that's it for this week.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, man. It's good talking to you.
You too.
If you'd like to access the show notes for this episode, you can go to artofproductpodcast.com. Hey, everyone, before we go, just one quick administrative note. Derrick and I are going to take the next week off. It's the middle of summer. I'm traveling, so we will not be releasing a podcast next week. But after that, we'll be back on our normal schedule, and we'll see you then. Thanks.
See ya.